mythological or poetic way of expressing his significance for us. This recognition is called for in the interests of truth. For Christianity can only remain honestly believable by being continuously open to the truth. In the same book Ibid, p. 4, Maurice Wiles writes, "Negative generalizations are notoriously dangerous claims to make. Nevertheless, it seems to me that throughout the long history of attempts to present a reasoned account of Christ as both fully human and fully divine, the Church has never succeeded in offering a consistent or convincing picture." Mr. Wiles, who was at the time canon of Christ Church, goes on to urge that Christianity without incarnation should be regarded as a positive and constructive idea, rather than negative and destructive. He points out that the worship of Christ, traditional throughout the whole of Christian history, is idolatrous in character. Where did the concept come from? 85 some 3 centuries after Jesus' death, culminating with the Council of Nicaea of 325 AD, a politically motivated church solidified the doctrine of God incarnate. In the myth of God incarnate Ibid, p. 17, Francis Young makes an interesting and critical observation, pointing out that the focus of the Gospels is quite different from that of Jesus' own teachings. The epistles of Paul, and indeed the speeches of Acts, reveal that the early Christian gospel was about Jesus Christ. This makes it the more likely that the Gospels correctly report that the message of Jesus was different. It was about the kingdom of God. There are difficulties in tracing explicit messianic claims back to Jesus himself. Apart from John, where interpretative material is clearly placed upon the lips of Jesus, the Gospels invariably portray not Jesus but others as using phrases like the Holy One of God, or Son of David, or Son of God. Furthermore, Mark's Gospel conveys the impression that Jesus attempted to keep his identity as Messiah a secret divulged only to his inner circle. This messianic secret motif in Mark remains an unsolved problem, especially since it appears sometimes to be introduced rather artificially, yet it adds to the impression that Jesus may well have preferred to remain enigmatic, in the interests of directing his hearers away from false enthusiasm for himself, to the consequences of the coming of God's kingdom for their lives here and now. Young goes farther, arguing that Paul never claimed Jesus was God. Ibid, pp. 20-22. Whether Paul himself believed Jesus to be God, or not, it was the Pauline tradition which eventually developed the doctrine of God incarnate, culminating with its formal doctrinal statement in the Nicene Creed. In the myth of God incarnate, Michael Goulder and Francis Young present a number of plausible theories dealing with the development of incarnational belief in the early Church. They both agree that the roots of incarnation and of the divinity of men extend to the pre-Christian and pagan cultures. 86. Development of the Christian doctrine. We know that the concept of Son of God was quite different for Jews following Mosaic law and Romans whose religious mythology specifically referred to divine children of the gods. Young points out that both Jewish and Greco-Roman traditions have the idea of the ascent of exceptional men into heaven, and of heavenly beings, either angels or gods, coming to earth to help men. It is not an impossible step from those traditions to the belief that God himself had to come to earth to save mankind. Don Cuppett, former dean of Emmanuel College at Cambridge, concluded that the incarnational doctrine no longer belongs to the essence of Christianity, but only to a certain period of church history, now ended. Ibid, p. 134. Cuppett also narrates that the Eastern theologian John of Damascus about AD 675 to 749, in defending iconolatry, admitted the fact that neither the Trinity nor the homoousion identifying Jesus as God nor the two natures of Christ can be found in the Scriptures. John of Damascus then continued, "But we know those doctrines are true." After he acknowledged that icons, the Trinity and the Incarnation are innovations, John of Damascus went on to urge his readers to hold fast to them as venerable traditions delivered to us by the Fathers. Thus, at least 14 centuries ago, he recognized that the incarnation doctrine is not a divinely revealed doctrine, delivered to us by Jesus, but an idea passed down to us by the fathers. Don Cuppet adds that John of Damascus was not the only theologian to use this argument. Theodore the Studite about AD 795 to 826 also used it. Cuppet then states that this brings out an odd feature of Christianity, its mutability and the speed with which innovations such as the incarnational doctrine come to be vested with religious solemnity to such an extent that anyone who questions them finds himself regarded as the dangerous innovator and heretic. Where did the concept come from? 87 Cuppet emphasizes